Good morning, my beautiful friends. You can see my suitcase back here. Today's my last day here in Charleston, and I have this great story to tell you. And it's all about how like spirit just lines things up for you. So it's been an amazing conference. I got to see my friends from New Jersey, and that was so much fun. I love them so much. They're just such a great group of people, and it was great to spend time with them. Working on professional stuff and just having fun. A few nights ago, we had booked a ghost tour through Charleston, through the historic district of Charleston, and as these things go, and as you know, if you follow the channel, I believe in spirit and I believe in these things. But as far as tours goes, this one was terrible. It was terrible. Lady sucked. She she used an iPad. There was a twitchy light, and she was like, "Oh, it's the spirit of Robert E. Lee." I'm pretty sure that's a twitchy street light, and you probably should call it Public Works. But anyway, we were, it's a tough crowd because there's like 20 professors and this lady who's clearly full of crap. But anyway, we didn't walk very far. It was a 2-hour tour, and we spent most of our time we went a whole block, not even a whole block, like a half a block. But we spent a lot of time standing outside this church that was a beautiful church. It was under construction, called St. Philip's, and the tower was leaning, and it was really nice. But I was not listening to this lady because she was full of crap, and so I was reading the sign, and I was thinking, well, I really was kind of wishing I had been home to go to church for Ash Wednesday, which was last night, and this was had a sign for services for last night. So I thought, oh well, I don't know what kind of church this is, but I'll check it out and see if I can get an Uber and come back for services last night. So when I got home or back to the hotel, I looked it up, and it's an Anglican church, not an Episcopal church, but actually an Anglican church, and that's very rare. Where I live, they're Episcopal churches, that they're not specifically Anglican. So I was like, oh, that's really really cool. So I Facebooked the church, and and did an exchange with them. They were so kind. They had a Shrove Tuesday dinner, which I thought I might get to, but I didn't. But they gave me information for how to attend last night's service, and so I thought, okay, well, I'll go. So I took an Uber over, and it's just this beautiful historic church that dates back to the 1600s. It's I've never been in a church. I've seen them, but I've never been in one that has the the pews are like a little box, and you have a little door, and you go in the little door, and the church is just, it's stunning. I mean, even under construction, even with all the scaffolding, it's still such a beautiful space. And everybody was just so friendly. I mean, people in the South are, if you're not from the United States, the people in the South are typically very friendly, and definitely embrace Southern hospitality in ways that people in the North do not. So everybody was super friendly. I had found, a pew to sit in. I'm sitting in the pew, and then these two elderly women come over, and the one woman looks at me, and you could just tell she's full of spirit, right? She's like, "Are you by yourself?" And I'm like, "Yes." And she's like, "Well, move over." So I moved down, and then they get in my box with me. So we're sitting there, and then I tell them I'm from out of town, that I'm from Pennsylvania. I'm visiting for work, but I'll be returning home today. And we talk a little bit, and then the service starts, and it was a beautiful service, great homily, and it was the traditional Anglican service that I'm used to from growing up. I mean, same kind of words, little bit different music than I'm used to, but pretty much the same that I grew up with. And the homily was really good, and there was the imposition of ashes, and then communion, and it was a mixture really of the very old Amish Anglican that I'm used to, but also some modern things that you would see, maybe in an Episcopal church. Definitely, more modern than some of the churches I've been to in my past. So it was a really great experience, and I really did enjoy it. So, afterwards they had a light supper. So I thought, well, I'll go to that, and because nothing tastes better than cookies baked by the church ladies. So So I went over, and then I'm standing in line with the bishop, who's not, this isn't the cathedral, so this isn't his church. And I'm talking to him, and he knows, like, one of my best friends from church, from one of the priests that I was really close friends with because we ran a youth camp together. Like, he knew him and his wife knew him, and knew, like, Bishop Paul, and knew Father Paul. And I was like, oh, this is like, so we take a picture, and I'm like trying to send it to Paul, who I call Ernie, and I'm just like overwhelmed with like, okay, Spirit, like you know you're you're lining everything up. So then I sit down, and of course I don't know anybody, so I sit at a kind of empty table, and there's two young women there, high school students, and they're talking about the youth program. And when I was involved in the Anglican Church, I was very involved with youth ministry, ran the youth camp, did all kinds of things. And we're talking about, like, they do this thing in May, and then this other woman who had been sitting on the other side of me came and sat down, and she worked in Pennsylvania, and like had been to Quakertown and all these places that are actually near where I live. And again, it was just like, okay, all right, Spirit, I get it. So when I go to leave, I can't get Uber up on my phone. Like, I don't have great reception, so I'm like having trouble, and I'm not yet at the panic stage, but I'm like, what am I gonna do if I can't call an Uber to get back to the hotel, because you can't walk to it? And then out of the parking lot comes the two elderly women, and they roll down the window, and they're like, "Oh, it's so nice to meet you." And I said, "Oh, it's so nice to meet you." And I said, "I'm trying to get my Uber app to work so I can, so I can get back to my hotel." And she's like, "Well, what hotel are you at?" And I said, "I'm at the Marriott." And she's like, "Oh, I'm gonna drive right by there." So these two women pick me up and take me home. But on the way home, the one woman, the like sassier one, the one that wasn't driving, she's like giving me a tour, and she knows everything about every single house that we're going by, and like the fire that happened, and this is who lived in this house, and this is who lived in this house. And it turns out that she is like the daughter of like a former senator, and she is a prolific author and has written all of these books about Charleston and the history of Charleston. And so she's like, well, we're going to stop by at my house first, at her apartment. And she gave me her book, one of her most recent books. So the Huguenots were French. They were a French religious group, and I only know this because my friend Dave Longebach, who teaches history back home, he had talked about this at some point. And they were burned under I don't know, Louis, one of the Louis, right? And so I knew about them from him just briefly, but apparently there was a big group of them here in Charleston. And she's like, if you promise to read the book, I will give you a copy. And she even signed it. So I was like, what? Spirit is just so amazing, right? So here I am alone in the city. I'm all by myself. All my friends have left. They've all gone home. I couldn't get a flight back before today. And, Spirit's just like, here, we're going to shuffle you down this path, and you're going to meet all these great people. You're going to have this great experience. You're going to meet these young people who are just super, super nice. And I will say that at church, like up north, like, people just, and myself included, like t-shirt, shorts, like, we don't really get all gussied up for church. This church had like 500 people in it. Not one person was wearing a t-shirt. Not one person was wearing jeans. Even the teenagers were wearing jackets. Maybe not ties, but they were wearing jackets. And the girls were wearing dresses. And it was just like such a beautiful experience. Like, it really was spirit filled. And I will say that everybody was so kind. Like, in a church that big, oftentimes you'll feel a little bit of the cliques or whatever that might happen. I didn't feel any of that. And in the Anglican church that I grew up in, the churches were so small. Like they, my church only had like 10 people in it, and that included my family. So, I've never seen an Anglican church with, other than at like synods for, back in the day, but I've never seen a natural church that had that many people at a service in the Anglican tradition. And that was their third service of the day. They had two other services for distributing ashes earlier in the day. It was so incredible. It really, and the homily was really good. You wonder, like, is it going to be fire and brimstone? Because sometimes the churches go like that, but it wasn't. It was about really about what you choose to do for Lent, and that you don't have to do things like fasting or praying, or the things that we're called to do during Lent. You choose to do that, and it can enrich your spiritual path if you choose to embrace one or all of the things that we're asked to do. And I was really just so thankful and so grateful. Like, I came back and I was like, I called my friend Dave, and I'm like, I heard about the Huguenots and I have a book. And then I called my friend Ernie, who I haven't talked to in forever, who actually lives down here in South Carolina. His real name is Paul, and I called him and I'm like, this guy knows you. I was trying to send the picture, but my phone was being a jerk and I couldn't, so I have to wait till I get home. And then I called my husband Dave, and I'm like, Dave, you're never gonna believe this. And it's like I mean, when you tell the story, it probably doesn't have the same impact on you as it did on me. But it was such a blessing, really such a blessing, and what a way to begin Lent. So in Lent, I often take something on, and I don't always give something up, because I always kind of feel like the things I want to give up, I should probably give up anyway, and Lent shouldn't be the reason why. But I think I'm going to go light on social media. So in the Anglican tradition, Sundays are feast days. So whatever you give up, you can actually do on Sunday. So I'll be able to check in to social media once a week. I'm going to post today before I leave Charleston, but then when I return home, I will be staying off Facebook, not reading, not scrolling through, and only going on Sundays to kind of catch up and make posts or whatever. But and I'm just so grateful to Spirit, and so blessed and so thankful. Such an amazing connection. Like, it reminded me of Iona, when I was on Iona, all these little connections that, the world is so big and yet it is so small, and it is filled with good, wonderful people. So I'm excited to read this book. Her name is Margaret Middleton Rivers Eastman. I'll be reading her book on the plane, and I'm excited to learn, because the Huguenots were persecuted in France, and much like the Druids. So interested in learning about them. So I am wishing you all the very best in light and love. Be well. Take care. Bye bye.